Travis Howard from Shift Cannabis, also Green Dream Cannabis. Kind of one of the original guys there in Colorado. Gives us a sense of not only the background in Boulder and surrounding areas, but also his background, big music guy, so we play with that a little bit. Hope you enjoy. You're Travis Howard.
Yes.
That's who's talking here. And you've got the Shift Cannabis thing, and you've got the Green Dream Cannabis thing, and we're going to get into all that.
I hope so.
Right? You're originally from Denver.
Yes.
So you're originally from Colorado.
I am an actual native.
Not very many native Coloradans.
I don't have a single friend that's a native.
Uh-huh. I see. Okay, that's a native.
Right.
I got you.
I've got acquaintances. You know,
Uh-huh.
I know there's some people in the industry that will probably take offense if they heard that. But
Right.
no, out of my close circle and the people that I spend time with that know my children,
Yeah.
none of them are from Colorado.
Transplants.
Yes.
And this were they transplanted before or after?
Cannabis?
Yeah.
Both, but
Okay.
most of them before.
Right.
College, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of stuff going on out there, a lot of tech transplants. Remember, I started at Sun Microsystems coming out of college. So it was very much a software community, a techie community coming out of Boston, New York, and then the Bay Area, moving to the new area where you could make money as a techie, but it costs a lot less to live than in those other areas.
So another Boulder person or people, but was it one or both Zarkowskis that were at Sun? Were they at Sun?
One of them was at Sun. I know Jay and Di both.
Yeah.
And everyone was. I mean, at that time period, Oracle level 3, everything was going in. I mean, it was who paid you in Colorado at that time?
Sure. And then
Cannabis.
So, okay. So where did you go to school?
I did my undergrad in Fort Collins at CSU.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to law school in Boulder at CU.
Uh-huh. Wait, so then because we just talked about the fact that you were in the Northeast for a moment, at least.
So I attempted to transfer to Boston College, was accepted, move out there, took a semester off school.
Uh-huh.
Was living out somewhere near Chestnut Hill, Brookline, Brighton, Alston. I lived in one apartment. I had 3 zip codes in 3 cities in 4 months. The cities physically changed.
That's amazing.
I met Hurricane Peter McNeely, the gentleman who was fighting Mike Tyson right when Tyson got out of jail.
Sure.
Hung out every night with Peter McNeely. We were both on the consumption end of the cannabis supply chain. A lot of demand, not so much supply.
Right.
And, loved Boston, absolutely loved Boston. That was when I was skateboarding every day, working at Harvard Square, Bladesboard and skate, shout out. Really just being a city grommet, wanted to learn, grew up in Wyoming. It was a totally different ball of wax. I know how to preg test cattle. I know how to, walk a draw. I know how to carry my rifle and those things. But I just really didn't understand how to survive in the city. And I was like, I need to go and learn. So grabbed my skateboard, went to Dorchester, went to Roxbury, went to every place that they told me I shouldn't go by myself.
Right.
Made friends, learned a lot of culture, grew as a human being. And then 2 days before class was supposed to start, got a letter from BC that said, the grant money we gave you, we've turned into this other package. It's called student loans.
Uh-huh.
And you should just keep going here anyways.
Sure.
Of course, yes.
We're just calling it something different.
Yes,
it's fine.
It's perfectly fine. Don't think about it, and just keep going here. I called my father and said, I need help.
Yeah.
I've got no money. I'm working minimum wage. I'm eating ramen and peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches. I was like 150 pounds at 6'2", just for calories, the mayonnaise. Like, why would you just for calories, right?
Uh-huh.
Like more than jelly.
Yeah.
So I said, Dad, I don't think that this is where I'm supposed to be. I love it out here, but I need to move back to Colorado and get my state tuition levels back since this is on me.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I'll buy you a plane ticket, and that's it. And I said, all right, sir. Left my ferrets, left my bed, left everything. Moved back to Colorado and finished up 2 years there at CSU, and then moved down to near Boulder. I lived in Denver, but working down there at Sun. And that's when I was working at Sun 2000, just in time to get my stock options and think I was going to drive a Maserati.
Sure.
To watch them all melt away over the next 2 years as the tech bubble crashed. And then, of course, 9/11.
Yeah.
And Sun had towers, or sales organization in the towers.
Yeah.
And I got selected from Colorado to come out here and help build the infrastructure. So I spent the summer of 2002 out here with some good friends
In New York.
In New York, I was in. They put me up at the hotel across from the Citigroup building, and then I call it the lipstick building, that like roundish, the cylinder,
comes
whatever.
up in the middle. Yeah.
Loved it. Had a great time out here in the city, and then ended up going back, and that's when I started my software company and started going to law school.
All right.
And that was the fun times.
Well, thank you for dotting the landscape. I've got a few questions.
Yes.
All right. So first off, Wyoming. It was easy to get to Colorado from Wyoming, right?
Yes.
In terms of school.
Yes.
It seemed like it was in the back door is Colorado, right?
Right. And my dad still lived there.
Okay. In Wyoming.
In Colorado.
In Colorado.
So I could get in-state tuition.
I see. And so when did he move from Wyoming to Colorado?
He stayed always. So my parents were divorced when I was 4.
That's what we needed.
Right. I moved to Wyoming in 1986 with my mom and my stepdad. Stayed there until 96. Back to Colorado.
A lot going on in Wyoming in the late 80s, early 90s.
They were definitely digging a lot of holes. Digging a lot of holes up there.
4-H, I would imagine?
I did not do 4-H, but
No.
all of my friends did. So playing football, I was a quarterback, and all the people I played with, they were, the ranchers. As I said, you go out there, you preg test cattle, you learn how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Loved Wyoming. Absolutely love it. Very libertarian at its core. I know today we forget about that sort of politically, but the idea that people are people and nobody can give you rights or take them away. Very powerful in Wyoming as a kid, and definitely shaped a lot of my political views today, as far as like, don't tell me about cannabis, those sorts of things.
And Alaska actually shares Wyoming's point of view, politically, as far as, we are Alaskan.
Right.
And you don't need to know anything. And
right. That's how it is. And there's pros and cons across, every paradigm or way of thinking. But, I enjoyed growing up in Wyoming. I learned a lot of lessons that, as you say, everyone from New York said, "Oh, you're from Wyoming, man. That's so lame." And I'm like one.
I'd never said. I want to make sure that you don't.
No. I had a ton of friends in college that moved from New York, because why wouldn't they move to Colorado?
Sure.
And the answer was, well, I was one of 500,000, and you were one of how many million? I mean, exactly. I love the city; it's excellent, but there's so many of you there.
Yeah. Well, first, before we get to the city, because we will, you talked about being a Boston kid, or Dorchester, I think.
Dorchester.
Yeah.
The first time I called Worcester, they said, "What are you doing?" I learned Worcester real quick.
That's exactly right.
Gloucester.
Yeah. So, but how does the Wyoming, preg testing kid turn into the skate kid in Boston? How does that happen?
Oh man, there's so many. So MTV introduced me, number one to Fab Five Freddy and the rest of these guys. Luckily, Columbia House and BMG, the put in a penny and get 5 CDs. So, Brand Nubian and all the rest of the hip hop that was going on out here.
Featured on Yo MTV Raps, if I'm not mistaken.
Of course. And then at the same time, you had Santa Cruz and the skateboarding phenomenon with like Bones Brigade and those things, Christian Asoy, and they all kind of came together. And it was like, I can go one way or the other, but I got to go somewhere else. I got to go somewhere new, because Wyoming's just not doing it.
So just to stay on that kind of music vibe, I would imagine both Fishbone and Bosstones for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, what's interesting is that 1996, one of the first Warped Tours was at Red Rocks. Both of those bands played there.
Yeah. As they would have.
As they would have that time of the year.
Red Rock's great place to see a show.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, okay, Boston, you did your thing. Then you come back to Colorado. You get your Sun Microsystems deal going.
Right.
They kick you out to New York.
Yep.
Spend a couple of years. Where did you live in New York?
We were right here in Midtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah.
It's very boring.
It was very boring, but I worked. I was on my own. I was only here for that summer.
Oh, just one summer?
Yeah, just one summer.
Okay.
And so not technically living here, although I had a hotel paid for me. It was like an apartment.
That's great.
Frankly,
where'd you hang out at night? You remember?
Everywhere my skateboard would take me, right? I mean, the first place I had to trek to is find the 555 Soul, like store and go buy some pants and stuff.
Sure.
And because everyone's rapping about it. And then I had to get a Fat Beats, right? Like, can I please see Stretcher Bobbito? Like, please, like listen to radio, just find anyone with a radio. Cause there was no real radio in Wyoming. It was like, just whatever was hot on the, that chart. But I went all over. I mean, I
Did you
went.
trace the roots to Africa Bambaataa in the Bronx, or?
No, I should have. I should have. I had my very first mini DV cam recorder,
Uh-huh.
and I just would skateboard with it on next to my hip. And I'm actually going to send it to an artist I met out here, and he wants to go through and is like, walk the same streets now. We had this whole great conversation at this bar. I love New York. Every time you come here, you just like start talking to somebody, and boom, 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 you're off to 16 new ideas. So
Absolutely. We like it. Without question. All right. So, but then you go back to Colorado, and I feel like you mentioned the fact that you started up your own software company.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I'm at Sun, and I realized that even though you can have earrings and tattoos, and you don't have to wear a tie, that it's still a 50,000 person company, and I've been totally disillusioned about what it was going to really be like there. So I apply to law school, and I get accepted. And one of my good friends from Wyoming was coding software, and he said, "I've got an idea. I want to sell it. Problem is someone wants to buy it. I haven't written it yet. Can you write me a contract that would scare even the most, interested party away?" And I said, "I can do that."
That I can do.
I wrote that contract. Thank goodness.
This is before law school.
This was right in law school.
In law school.
So
Okay.
it was the first year of law school, and he takes this off to this auto dealers association, and people go bananas. And he comes back. He's like, "You wanna go for this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Here I'm going to school. It's not like I'm overworked. Although most people in law school will tell you it's crazy. It was that first semester, but then you fall in your grooves and off you go.
Well, that's what they say. The first year, kind of get used to that
Right.
Socratic method,
Right.
and then you're fine.
And then you're good to go.
Right.
And that's, if you want to know something about the growth of me, that first semester. I mean, in all honesty, like that's something that you would never know to ask. But the first time in my life where I was openly, graded and set below the curve, right? Like, but wait a minute, holy crap! There are 180 kids in here, and they are all wicked smart.
Right.
Like there's some Boston.
There you go. Exactly.
And then, looking at my now wife and saying, like, is it me? Am I not cut out? And she's, why don't you give it, one more semester shot, give it your all.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to quit just because you ended up at the, below the curve? And
Yeah.
I said, you know what, you're right. Gave it my all second semester, understood the testing process way better, made Dean's list, and then checked myself out of the game. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to graduate, do what I want, pick the courses that I want.
Yeah.
I'm not on this partner track. I'm not trying to get a firm job. It was never when I went to school, but I did have to prove to myself. But that was that time period when it was like, all right, I know what I'm made of.
Yeah.
Right. I know what I'm made of.
What do you think it was? Was it simply just learning the system? Is that what it was that it kind of put you behind the eight ball? You wound up on the wrong end of the bell end, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, one, it was system. A lot of the kids had friends or brothers or parents that were attorneys and understood like that you don't just answer the question, you answer the question and then you answer all the other questions that you told them you asked, right?
Uh-huh.
But part of it was also growing up in Wyoming. If you were athletic, you got to start in every sport, right? You didn't get cut. You couldn't feel. They had to do soccer in the spring because otherwise you couldn't have a football and soccer team at the same time of year.
Because
right?
Those are the same kids.
Right. And so there was a little bit of resting on the laurels. Like, I'm sure I'm intelligent. I've always had great grades. Like, I'll just do what I always did. It's always been good enough. And it was the first time that I was confronted with doing good enough. This time actually wasn't good enough. And you need to give it your all, and then it will always be good enough. And that was when I really started to grow up.
I love it. And is that where the look changed? Because you mentioned your look being a little bit more enigmatic than what I see before me, which is, the nice glasses and the tie. I mean, I can see the ink, but
No, I mean, there's no pigeonhole, right? There's no pigeonhole, and I'll never fit in one. And in fact, intentionally, I will never fit in one. It's a piece of who I am, and maybe that comes from living with my mom and my dad and going back and forth and having two homes, two sides of me, the rest of it. But music culture, there's no reason that your clothes or your dress can't help somebody else feel more comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's not always about yourself. And I know that if I'm here and I'm representing the cannabis industry and I want to get a message across that no clothing that I don changes who I am or how I think, but if I can help them feel more comfortable so they may learn something or they may accept something that they hadn't before, that's no sweat off my brow. Why wouldn't I do that for somebody else? That's a gift I can give them.
So you're literally presenting a package. You are obviously comfortable with yourself enough to present a package to someone else to inform them essentially, help them along that learning curve of cannabis.
Certainly.
You know,
But I practiced law for a few years, so I'm not uncomfortable in a suit and tie, right?
Right.
I mean, I can just as soon go, smoke a joint with the caddy, or go into the place and, like, hang out at the country club and talk golf. I mean, they're both me.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that, and it's all of me.
Yeah, I love that. I also feel very at home in both of those places, without question. Did you ever caddy when you were a kid?
Never professionally for money, right? Like, never, obviously amateur at that age, but
Right.
I definitely did caddy for a lot of the guys at the country club, trying to earn some extra bucks,
Yeah.
probably so I could buy new CDs.
There you go.
On Columbia House.
All right. So you're a big music fan. This has helped inform you all along the way.
Absolutely.
So one of the final questions that we ask is, on the soundtrack of your life, can you name one track? I'd like to do one better with you.
Okay.
I'd like to trace along the path here and give a song at each stop. So for Wyoming, what track might that be? If you're a big, you're a big music guy. This is kind of built for you.
Yeah, because that's 10 years time. I mean,
Right.
I don't know if I could pick one track, but in my wall, Nirvana and Guns N' Roses were huge for me at that time period. I remember having both of those. Remember when CDs came in the cardboard?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
The
like
long,
yes.
yeah.
So I'd cut those off and staple them to my wall.
Awesome.
I remember both of those ones, but I mean, we went through The Cure and In Excess.
Well,
and
when was that? So Boston, what was?
No, that was all Wyoming, right? Like
okay.
that time period. And then moving into college and then into Boston was much more like underground hip hop, West Coast. So Boot Camp Click a lot, Cenobites, those sorts of things. Anything gritty that I thought no one else had heard. Could I find a nugget that I could share with somebody?
Mhm.
I always enjoyed that, which actually reminds me of what I felt like I was doing today. So there's a lot to music and building that your personal culture.
Absolutely, and helping inform.
Absolutely.
So just quickly, New York. What track would you put on New York?
Oh man, Beastie Boys. I mean,
Have to.
Yeah,
Right?
it was Beastie Boys.
Something off of Paul's Boutique, I hope.
Yes, what a great album. I love that. I love that album. And then moving back to Colorado, probably the Living Legends. That's when I started really getting to a lot of the West Coast,
Okay.
and the Grouch and Living Legends.
So does the wife come in before cannabis?
Cannabis comes in for me at the age 16. But do you mean as an industry?
Industry-wise, yeah, exactly. As far as when did you? So you've got your. Let's do it this way. You've got your company, meaning you wrote this contract, and then what happened from there? You wrote this contract for this person.
Right. So then I turn into the head of sales and recruiting, and I'm pushing
For him.
for us, right? I've got equity, so now I become a partner. And
what was the nature of the business?
We were making a wholesale marketplace for used cars, auto dealers. So
what was it called? We might remember it. Dealers
Link.
Okay.
It still exists.
Indeed.
Hertz only sells their cars through Dealers Link when they come off of lease.
Look at that.
We went to Detroit. I met with Porsche and Audi and stuff. It was a lot of fun, but at the time we were just trying to save our shorts, and I've still got law school, so I had to push all my classes to Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
And I'm driving around Colorado and rural Wyoming selling software to auto dealers. Really the second phase of lesson learning in my life, cutting my teeth with people that are the consummate salesmen and always think that they're better than everybody else walking into their auto dealership.
Right. Their auto dispensary.
Their auto dispensary, which is what they were doing.
Right.
It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't the culture that I liked.
Totally.
We were making money. It was fun in software. You build it once, you sell it a million times. Great business model. But at the end of the day, the people that I was hanging out with were not my culture. Lots of Rolexes, and not that I don't appreciate something like that, but that really was the drive of the business.
Yeah.
Right. That
Sure.
was, why am I doing this? To get the Rolex.
To get the
And
Rolex.
It just really wasn't resonating.
Aside from culture, what was it like selling to salespeople?
Humbling.
Yeah.
Very, very humbling.
What's the key there, would you say?
Oh man, no. Number one, you have to come in 100% confident.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you just have to, because you're going to get tested, and then have thick skin because they're testing you on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reminded of a story. My good friend Sam once his dad was being a jerk. Something was going on. And I remember he took a swing at his dad. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what is going to happen here? Like we were probably 14.
Yeah.
And I remember his dad looks at him and he smiles and he says, "You'll be a man yet." And it was like this whole like, wait, like he and I'm not saying that's a good parenting technique. That's
No.
not, but what I'm saying is that when you come out of that situation, that dealer puts you in that position on purpose. Whether he liked your product or didn't like your product, he was gonna try to push you down and see how you responded to pressure, because his business was gonna be depending on you at some point.
Right.
And I never forgot that lesson.
Yeah. That's pretty humbling, as you say.
Absolutely.
It's a good phrase.
I got tossed out of a lot of dealerships with no sale, but that company still exists because I didn't give up.
So let's describe that inflection point of they still exist and you're not there type of thing. When did that happen?
2008.
Uh-huh.
I moved to Tucson and start helping my in-laws that were from here.
Yeah.
And they're doing special needs therapy, and they want to help their company go international. So I start making sales calls to countries, consulates, and opening up business around the world. Quickly realized that as much as I love my in-laws, living with them and my wife is pregnant at this time, and we're living in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm running their business and seeing them every day. And I just said, "Babe, we're having our child in Colorado, and I can't work for your family. I want to love them forever, and we are moving back home." And luckily enough, she supported me.
Yeah.
Got back, started practicing law in steps, Green Dream Cannabis. I've got a few clients at the time. They're not calling me from any other businesses because everything's tanking, the economy. No entrepreneurs aren't hungry right now, except in Colorado. 2009 starts cranking, and then we start to get into the early 2010, and Reed Porter gave me a call, and we decided to potentially represent him and see if he wanted to do some business and get merged up with a dispensary at a grow. And halfway through the merger and acquisition, both parties are looking at me going, we really need a third party here to help us decide on things because we don't know each other. And they're looking across the table, and I'm like, whoa, I'm just practicing law in this space. I know there's not a lot of us, but let me talk to my wife. And I went home, and she says, "Travis, you have to. You're going to be furious for the rest of your life if you don't jump in the whole way." She knows me. I'm not a toad dabbler. I'm a swimmer.
Yeah.
Like, let's get wet. Let's get all the way in.
Yeah.
And so I called Christian Cedarberg, and I said, if I go into this business, can I hand a couple of my clients off to you that are still open? And he said, gladly. And he goes, I'm glad you're going to be there. He's like, you're going to represent us well. And
there you go.
That's all the encouragement. I had a friend, and I had my wife, and I had a new business partner, and I said, I'm all in.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you be, right? If you've got the blessing of not only your wife, but the Christian Cedarberg.
Right.
But your wife seemed to know you well. Christian, did you know Christian from law school?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a year before me, but we did an entrepreneurial law clinic together where you get to help people that can't afford yet, but they have great business ideas.
Right.
And we became friends that way.
Okay. And you said it, your wife knows you well. It sounded like when you went to speak to her about this potential opportunity, you had more doubt than maybe she did in pushing you kind of into the deep end, like you say.
So when we moved back from Arizona, shortly thereafter, a few months, my daughter Olivia was born, and 11 months later, my daughter Emily was born.
I think those are called Irish
twins.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
got it. All three of my kids are Pisces, by the way, within like 11 days of birthdays. And so I had two children to think about, right? And I really wanted to make sure that I was making decisions. Obviously, talking about the chronically of my life and my parents being divorced, and this is something that was very, very crucial to me to make sure that I was there for my children and the rest of it. And I was unsure because I knew that I wanted to, but was I being selfish, right? And I needed somebody that I trusted to be able to give me that, that feedback. And she said to me, she looked me in the eye, she says, I know you're taking a risk. Because remember, 2010, doors are still getting kicked in various places. Nobody knows what the hell's going on.
Especially in Boulder, by the way.
Yes. And she says to me, Travis, if something happens and you end up in a box because of, helping somebody or trying to grow cannabis or spread the word, I'll bring the children and I'll tell them that you're a hero. If you end up in that same cell because of some stupid tax evasion, or you partner with someone that's going out the back door, or all this crap that I read about in the newspaper,
Right.
you'll never see them again.
Right.
Right. But by all means, go and do it. I support you.
That's awesome.
Right. And I was just like, of course, right. Those are
Yeah.
my ethics. Those are my values.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in the industry, and I don't begrudge them, that were on the supply side of this before it was, a legal market. But I was only on the demand side of that supply chain. And, it's been 22 years now. And it was just an internal choice that wasn't the right choice for me to participate before it was okay for me to participate.
Right. Yeah. All right. So 2010, Green Dream. Explain how that kind of came to be. How did that blossom? The entire partnership and everything.
So people familiar with the time period know that we had the Compassionate Act and stuff in 2000, and then 1284 comes along, and they say vertical integration. So Reed has a grow that he was smart enough to have in a warehouse and not in a house like so many were at that time. And through a friend, we found out there was a dispensary in Boulder that had tried to open. And the individual that had tried to run it, the son, it had only been open a couple months, and things went south, and there was no product, and the money was gone, and yada yada. But there was this whole build out, right? And so they were looking for each other, and so we formed this relationship, and it was Green Dream. The three of us joined the board, and all of our values mixed. That we're going to have a really nice experience for people. That it's going to be a people-based business, and that we're going to acquire good genetics and grow them as well as we possibly can. And that, to do that, we'll charge more to the consumer in Boulder that can afford it. But that for those that can't, we will use those higher prices on the top end to help people on the lower end of that spectrum. And 5 years later, that's still something we do and that we believe in.
Take us through how you do help on the lower end. We get it, as far as the top end. What are you doing with the.
So a lot of education, a lot of giveaways. I've given away thousands and thousands of dollars of CBD oil to people that can't afford it. We've got programs where if you can, document your income and those sorts of sources, that I'll give you membership benefits even though you're a member at another place, but you want something that I have. I'll treat you like you are, and anything I can at the end of the day to give them a higher value, more product. Because they want the oil that they know that's been grown right, and we're not spraying the things that they don't want, especially, condensed into a CO2 concentrate of a CBD or THC, regardless.
Right. So 2010, 11, 12, you've got one kind of way of doing business. You're growing the business, I would imagine. 13, 14, things start to change a little bit, to say the least.
Things have changed dramatically, although we are still 100% medical, opening up recreational by the end of the year.
You haven't opened?
Nope.
Ah.
We've continued to grow our business. I work with people that we're doing, and we were doing some grow consulting and some ops consulting for a couple Denver dispensaries that were 100% recreational. When the time
we like
came.
to call that adult use, Travis.
Adult use, absolutely.
Indeed.
Because much of it isn't recreational. A lot of it's OTC.
Indeed.
And that's the beauty of it. In fact, I think that's probably the largest segment that moving forward we'll find that self-medication, that OTC market. But no, we're 100% medical and still growing. I mean, just really growing, showing that if you do put in that culture and the caring, and that you scale your business through culture, which is what I was out here talking about, that will survive, and you will resonate with the people that have your same worldview. Not trying to change someone's worldview, but shouting out loudly and proudly what our worldview is, and allowing those people to come and work with us.
From a cultural standpoint, from a vision and a value standpoint, I understand your point of view. How did you guys come to the decision, as January 1st, 2014 was approaching, to say, actually, we're going to wait, talk about that decision, because very few people did not kind of do that when they could have.
We felt like we really were a part of that first group in Boulder, working with the city council and the regulators, and we'd spent so much time explaining to them that this plant is medicine, and that we had really great intentions, and we had hoped that things would change recreationally, but we did our adult use, but we
Yeah.
did not know when that was going to happen.
Hmm.
And it didn't feel right to us yet. We knew that we could very easily just switch and be 100% adult use,
Yeah.
but to be able to do both, because Boulder said you can't do this virtual separation,
Right.
we decided that if we had to be one, we were going to be medical.
Hmm.
We were going to double down on what we said we were about,
Hmm.
and that we were going to continue to reinforce that culture and that message.
Yeah. So it's almost it's Boulder specific, and that almost helped you kind of come to the decision that you might have made anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
No, it's as I like to tell my kids, I mean, if you keep thinking the right way, paths will open up for you that lead you there. You
Mm.
know, if you don't keep your mind on what you believe is right now, or what you're really trying to magnetize,
Yeah.
you know, it's dumb luck at that point. But if someone comes to me and says, isn't it kismet or fate that open? No, it's
No.
not.
Right.
You know, I've been thinking this way for a long time, and when the opportunity presented itself, I saw it clearly because of that.
Mm. It's interesting. How do you phrase that to? You have kids that are under 10. That it
Yeah,
sounds like a big concept.
I talk to my children like they're adults.
And they get it.
It's what my mother did for me, and
Yeah.
I think it's because, you know, from the divorce, she didn't have a lot of other adult friends. She was going to night school, working for a petroleum company as a secretary,
Mm.
and you know, when she came home, I was like the only person there. So she just talked to me like I was, you know, her girlfriend, I guess.
For some reason, I just had a flash of the Karate Kid.
Oh,
That
great time period.
that
Yes.
relationship
Yes.
is at that moment.
Yes, that is exactly it. I was watching those movies then and listening to Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Oh my, that's my first crush without question.
Oh my goodness. I got that record and Thriller at the same time. My mom brought home like this used record player, and I was just like, Mother, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. Thank you. Plus there's like 2 bad words on here. This is great.
This is amazing. I will put another dime in the jukebox. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, all right. So then, when does Shift Cannabis come into this? If you've, if you've been medical the whole time, fantastic, and congratulations. Shift Cannabis, when did that come in?
So the first 6 months that Green Dream was open, Reed was operating it, and I was just sitting on the board. So I was still living in Denver, and I was going to be, you know, a board manager and a managing member, but I wasn't going to collect a paycheck and work in it every day. And during that time period, I decided that I wasn't going to practice law in cannabis because I now owned. So what was I going to be doing? And sitting down in Denver, I was still getting calls from people on, well, how would you structure a business? And not legally, I have an attorney, but could you look at, you know, operational processes, or could you help me figure out A, B, and C? So I started consulting.
Yeah.
And so Shift was really born out of that company. It still is Canna Council, but now it's DBA Shift. And 2011, 2012, I'm working full-time in Green Dream with Reed, and I've still got some opportunities. And I'm like, you know, we're learning things here. Naturally, I want to teach. I want to coach. And I looked at Reed and I said, you know, if I'm going to give time to this other entity, it's going to put us at odds. And besides the fact I'm not a cultivator, you know, and I don't have a lot of the background that Reed has from food production and such, and being a licensed cultivator in Colorado since 2005. And I said, would you join me and help spread and teach some of these lessons? And he said, I'd love to. And so he joined the team, and that's when we took off the name Canna Council, because, you know, the lawyer thing and the stuff, and went with, what are we doing? This is our shift. We're going to shift the way that we look at our business and the way that we look at the greater cannabis community, and we're going to be a part of this shift in culture and the paradigm.
I love the kind of the verbiage and the nomenclature, and it all makes sense. Who's running Green Dream if both of you guys are running Shift? So
Shift has a management contract,
Yeah.
and as a proof of concept, like I said, I won't consult anything through Shift that I won't do at Green Dream.
Right.
We've scaled up through staff that understand our culture, that held our culture before we hired them, and we have great managers in place. So we will, you know, we have the tools and such to manage a business like anybody that's an entrepreneur and owns multiple businesses. We check in regularly.
Yeah.
I live 5 minutes on one side. He lives on 5 minutes on the other side. So we're constantly there in our backyard checking in on our baby. But we're proving to our clients at Shift that you can manage a business through these processes and belief systems and get great results.
And what year did Shift start up?
Shift started in 2010, but as a consulting, but it didn't really move until April, probably 2014. And I went and did the Cannabis Money show, and it was like Boston, Chicago, San Francisco.
Yeah.
Got back out on tour, if you will,
Yeah.
and started meeting people and really figuring out how to be a discerning consultant and not just taking clients that wanted to pay you and then trying to convince them later, but really figuring out who was a prime candidate who already looked at the world through the same lenses that we do.
That's a great way to do business. April 2014, we are in September 2015, and everybody knows in cannabis that's 7 years, or a little bit more even.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So over that time period, what have you seen? You say, you're picking the right clients.
Right.
Give us a few kind of, stories along the way here from the past year and a half or so.
We've seen edibles companies in California move into CBD dog treats.
I know who that client is.
Right. We've seen
everybody knows who that client is.
We've seen clients in Illinois get 6 licenses
Sure.
and take off. We've worked in New Hampshire on some living organic soil applications and really hoping that Northeast stays with what made Vermont and New Hampshire special for cannabis when I was in Boston in the late 90s.
Indeed.
A lot of culture there. Love the microcultures of cannabis, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Tackling New Mexico, should be hearing soon about New Mexico, and making plans for Hawaii, and all the while trying to figure out what is Shift to its clients. So application work is one thing, genetic acquisition, cultural education. These are services that I sell, right? These are products through my consulting company, but what is Shift as an identity, and not Travis as a consultant or Reed as a consultant or one of our other principals. And that's when we really realized that, it's more about how we grow and how the cannabis industry views the overall economy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set a 5-year goal to have a net zero hybridized closed loop greenhouse in production and bringing that as a model and a paradigm to cultivation.
So when I was going to ask you to explain how we grow, but how we grow and how we grow, that's
exactly
both meanings and each and the same and both.
Yes. It's a lot of fun right now. We have a great opportunity to work with different nutrient manufacturers, different medium manufacturers, the infrastructure, the materials that are going into these construction projects, energy consumption. Obviously, everyone's looking at Tesla batteries and how can we use, more solar and these sorts of things. And, I want to be looking at all those things, and we are, but I'm looking at them from how do we do that and still maintain an ability to grow luxury grade cannabis, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's luxury grade for an adult use market, then it's certainly pharmaceutical grade for a medical market. And one of the most interesting things that I'm realizing over the last 6 months doing this is that the strains, the varietals and the CBD relationships and ratios are actually perfectly suited on both. That my best medicinal, whether it's a 50-to-1 CBD or a 2-to-1 CBD, are actually now becoming the favorite choice for people that are my patients, but that are actually using it recreationally on a weekend when they're not, in the most pain or whatever's going on. And that these really are the same thing we're going for. And I know there's a lot of companies with, Ibu and a lot of these awesome guys that are out there that are going next level biopharma. And I'm not a scientist and I don't know anything about that stuff. That's not true and totally accurate, but I don't purport to be a scientist and know at that level. And that's important to me to allow them to be good at what they are, right, and to really kind of hone down, because a year ago, everybody was everything to everyone.
Sure.
And we're finally getting to where the pie in the market is big enough that people recognize that they can say no to things and still be special and important. Mm-hmm. And I'll be really excited when that has taken foot over the marketing and advertising world as well in cannabis, that you don't have to yell and scream and be everywhere for somebody to think that you're worth something or you're doing something, that we can get back to execution and results and making advancements in individual areas.
Yeah. And you had mentioned this specific way to grow that you'd like to get to. What about clients, sun grown versus indoor? What are your thoughts from a shift perspective on, where you want to be and what you want to do in those areas, knowing that you guys are working in a number of different geographies?
There's no one size fits all answer.
Hmm.
Somebody that we're working with in Hawaii that wants to really create and maintain their worldview is that Hawaii was the epicenter of cannabis, and Colorado kind of usurped that opportunity, and it's very personal to them, and so the
Which is also what California will tell you, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And I will always reply, and of course I show I'm a greenie, right? So my Colorado plates are green, and that's the case. But we seized the opportunity. We were dedicated, and we used the leverage and the help from all the other places, and we are one giant culture,
Hmm.
and we can fight like brothers and sisters because we're a family,
Sure.
right? And we can talk a little smack back and forth and have some fun. But at the end of the day, we are a family and we support each other. So really, it depends on what you're looking for in that area. Of course, we want to utilize the sun and the growing cycle, and knowing that we've got a perfect 12-12 flowering all year long in Hawaii, it would be silly to not utilize the sun. But if I'm working with somebody in Rochester, Minnesota, and having grown up and spent some time there with my mom's family, she was the oldest of six, and I spent a lot of time with my aunts and uncles. I know the winters there, and I know that if that's all we're working with, that we're going to have some problems. So we need to have some better solutions. Um, we do our flavor du jour is a biological system. So we're running 30% synthetic for stability and efficacy,
Hmm.
so that it's a systemized process. The plants are used to what they're getting. These things are traditionally fed, mechanized approach, so that if something happens and people don't come in, there's no catastrophic failure. I feel like, number one, you owe that to a business owner. Number two, you owe that to their customer base, to make sure that they're consistent and that they're stable.
Hmm.
And then if you get into medical, obviously you want the expression of terpenes and cannabinoids to be similar, unless you're homogenizing oil, so that you've got efficacy.
Right.
But then we go 70% hand-fed organics, top dressed in cocoa, and hand watered as well. So that you're getting, at the end of the day, what looks, feels, tastes, smells like 100% organic product, the care that's gone into it, and that sort of thing. A lot of flushing and the rest of that, but really trying to create a luxury grade connoisseur
Yeah.
cannabis, and then obviously hand trimming and spending the time to cure, and putting people in as many positions as I can instead of machines.
Right. You mentioned pharmacological grade type of thing and approach and all of that. And obviously, as we go here, whether we get rescheduled or descheduled, those are going to present their own realities.
Absolutely.
And who knows what will happen from a federal perspective. But where do you see it? Understanding that there are myriad possibilities. Um, where do you see a luxury grade versus a Budweiser versus a this versus a that future of the flower, or of cannabis itself?
So it's interesting, because that's really what I talked about today at NCIA, and there's a market for both. And somebody asked me, well, but we see the craft beer and it's doing so great today. And I said, yeah, but I remember I was in Fort Collins in 1996 when New Belgium and Odell's were really trying to get off the ground and move forward, and they had an enemy. They could say, we stand united against Coors. Anheuser-Busch was right down the road, in the brewing and bottling. And so there was this common enemy. And right now it's this perceived, like, oh man, big pharma is going to come in here, or big tobacco is going to come in here, and they're going to do all of this stuff. And so for cannabis, I think that it's a little bit different. Even though Budweiser at this point is now proudly in macro we stand, which is the hugest, like, kudos to the craft brewing ever. Like, we made Budweiser change their messaging.
They admitted
Awesome work.
it. Yeah.
But then in cannabis, I want the quality to be there, but I really think that we have a new opportunity to redefine boutique,
Mhm.
and that in the future of the purpose economy, which we're now in, and if anyone hasn't checked out Aaron Hurst in the purpose economy, go do that right now. Amazing work. That as we move into the purpose economy, boutique is now it's an action. it's a choice instead of a size, right? So purpose went from being a noun to a verb. It's how you do what you're doing that will give you purpose in the purpose economy.
Yeah.
And so to be boutique as a segment of that economy is really about the experience and the choices that you make. So even if you're only, producing your pounds cost $100 to produce and it's average quality, what are you giving for them? Right? You can still give somebody a boutique experience for this is what I believe, and I think it should be easy access. I don't think you should spend more than 3 minutes inside of a dispensary when you want to pick up your buds because you've got something to do. You can take that and make that about something you believe in and your value system. And hopefully if those are your values, then that's the business that you're starting, and you're not trying to be something hollow and shallow like the old system that brings us cigarettes and nasty beer and Monster Energy drinks that are bad for kids, and it's all marketing and it's not there's no value to the product, right? Like, let's leave that in the dust. And I don't care if you're the quality, the low end versus the high end. Of course there's going to be opportunity for high end cannabis. There's opportunity for high end everything on earth, right? If great TED Talk, The License of Luxury, one of the best TED Talks I've seen, and it luxury will be in every industry with every product line from here until
forever.
Right, forever. I mean, it's just how it is. But there's opportunity in cannabis with the unique cultures and so many micro cultures that you can provide, from a Willie Nelson experience to a Wu-Tang experience and everything in between. Based upon what you feel. Mm-hmm. And if you're hiring people and you're scaling your business through that culture, instead of through headcount, cash, .xls, you're ahead of the game, and you're gonna utilize the cannabis sector to just leverage yourself into the purpose economy.
Any other business happens to be cannabis, right, is basically your point here.
Exactly.
When did you read that book?
Read The Purpose Economy recently. Over the last couple weeks, I was actually doing research for Out Here, and I had been terming it the boutique economy. And I was talking to a couple different mentors that I have and a couple coaches, and they're like, it sounds like you're there, but you're usually, Travis, talking to me very confidently. And right now, I can hear in your voice like you've got concepts, but you don't have enough information to feel strong about it. You want to feel better.
Land the plane.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right. So I started getting back in, and then I'm reading about Elon Musk, because Tesla and some of the things that I see going on there. And I see a snippet that came out of that book. And I'm like, what is this book? And I immediately download it, and I'm in a rav, and it's just, oh my goodness. And I had no idea that this guy even existed, and that his uncle was the one that coined the information economy. And I mean, I'm like, wow. And then his father actually was instituting some social change in Boulder. I'm reading this example in the book, and I'm like, wait, I seen that sign in my daughter's school. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, so my dad is, working with BVSD. And I'm like, my kid goes to school here. And like everything started clicking. And by the time I finished the book, I knew the 3 categories that I wanted to, really explore. And I was like, what a great, and because here I was thinking I was coming up with this thing, because we're feeling it. Yeah. And what I realized is that I'm not alone. So many of these people in our economy right now, workers and customers, are feeling the need for purpose, right? Yeah. And I was calling it experience. Like, give me your values, like service rich, value rich, and service deep, right? And that component to me, actually, Aaron had already just put all the science and the studies behind it. I'm like, I don't have to prove that it's happening. Somebody else has already proven
this guy's got it.
We're just all aware of it. Now, how does the cannabis industry leverage this information, because we're on the forefront?
You said there are 3 principles there. Did I catch that?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, you've got, you can find purpose through growing as an individual, which people that are coming in and working in the cannabis industry are doing, because there's no book on how to make it to the top of the cannabis industry, right? So you're growing every day. Right. You can do it by the first one. Of course, I'm
totally putting you on the spot.
Right.
So sorry for doing that.
So you all come to me. So you've got doing something bigger than you. Growing individually, or you find purpose through a sense of community.
Okay.
Right. Well, so cannabis, doing something bigger than you, we're changing the laws of the whole world, right? I mean, we are as an industry.
Just the entire world. That's exactly right.
Just the entire world is all we're doing here. And then on the flip side of growing every day, we just covered that, whether you're a business owner and you're blazing a trail, or you're an employee. And then what an awesome ability to be a part of a community when cannabis culture has been around for 5,000, 10,000, however many thousand years.
Right.
And then the microcultures that we've developed in our own little area, smoking a joint in Humboldt versus smoking a joint in Dorchester, and what they call it and how they roll it and the shape of it. And do you grind it with your fingers or do you use a machine to grind it, and how that you're perceived.
And the conversation attached.
Yes. And then the beautiful part is the actual product gives a brand new experience for you to share, right? So it was just tailor-made for this, and it was just like, oh, this is excellent. This is what Shift is going to be about, is helping people understand this and how we can execute this responsibility and make an entire industry operate this way and be the first industry to fully adopt the purpose economy, actually lead the purpose economy into an overtaking of the world, and be done with these old nasty brands that don't do anything for us.
A redefinition of a brave new world.
Yes.
With
Yes.
respect to Aldous Huxley or
Yes.
whatever. All right, so we've made it. Travis, thank you so much for
you, Seth.
sharing. We've got our 3 final questions. We've got to change the third one for you, which
Okay.
I'm going to do, and I'm again going to put you on the spot. The 3 final questions we always try to ask everyone. The third one's somewhat new, but what has most surprised you in cannabis? That's the first question. What has most surprised you in life? That's the second question. And what we've been asking lately is on your soundtrack of life, name one track, name one song. What we're going to try to do with you is have you name either a side of an album or an entire album. We'll see how many songs deep we can go. But we'll do that last. We'll just, we'll start to spitball, see what happens. What has most surprised you in cannabis?
What has most surprised me in cannabis? The breadth of the people entering the industry at the rate that they have entered. I knew that there would be the time when this was looked at like it was a new ETF, right? Like just throw my money at that because the
Give me some of
signs
that.
say it's going up. I did not think that it would happen that quickly because, from frame of reference, I saw Colorado, right? And once Illinois and really once Illinois put its model out there and said we can really have this hyper competitive, Massachusetts as well,
and New York for that matter.
Well, yes, and that's the newest entrant.
Yeah,
that's really what surprised me is how quickly cannabis became an ETF. Which is probably why I'm fighting so hard for it not to be.
Right. And it will be and it won't be.
It both. It will be both, right?
Yeah.
You just got to fight for my side.
Indeed. To that end, what has most surprised you in life?
That it's so genuinely easy to love. And, I credit that to my wife and obviously my children at this point. But I'm at a position in my life now where I've been able to practice that concept long enough and use it with my kids that if you just try to find one piece of another individual, right, that you can relate to, that you remember that insecurity that you had or that same need for somebody to coach you, that, whether it's an employee that I'm firing because they've done something terribly wrong, or somebody in the industry or just in personal, that it's still so simple and easy to love them and love on them as a human being. And, I thought you'd really have to work harder or something. I don't know, but it surprised me how genuinely easy it is if you just give an ounce of effort. Just an ounce of effort.
So I'll repurpose that into our first song, which is "All You Need Is Love" by the Beatles. That's the feeling that you're giving me with your answer of how easy it is to love, which is, by the way, absolutely one of our best answers to that question. And then you drop your wife in there too. So I mean, that's come on.
We this Labor Day was our 10-year anniversary. So,
happy anniversary.
It was. I'm very blessed, but. In sixth grade, we did sing. I didn't get to play an instrument, and I had to sing instead. They hand selected you out of these different things, and I'm a terrible vocalist. I can't sing anything, but I was tall and I could stand up in the back row, so I think that's why they wanted me. And but we sang like 13 Beatles songs for like the class. Like that was our all year project. So
Right.
I definitely sang like, oh man, I remember so many. At that time, I was just like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
who are the Beatles? Why am I?
This sucks.
Yeah.
All right, so give us pepper us with a few songs for the soundtrack, if you will. You already kind of brought us through geographically, but what are must plays from Travis Howard's perspective?
Must plays.
Yeah.
I'm a Simple Man by
Yeah.
the Grouch.
Oh wow.
That one is a absolute must.
Should we add Simple Man by Leonard Skinner just to as a yin and a yang?
Yeah, you will see. Alabama and Leonard Skinner were definitely in the house with my dad. He's from Carolina, and
Yeah.
it was definitely a lot of that. I would say the cover of "Live and Let Live,"
Live and Let Die,
"Live and
Guns
Let
N'
Die,"
Roses,
right?
indeed.
That was an excellent one. Man, I remember I still listen to the entire Mobb Deep, the Infamous. I mean that album for me, and I know I've learned a lot more about those two as individuals and things that's happened, and that it maybe wasn't as authentic as what I was perceived it in Central United States. But
Yeah.
that album, I still listen to that album once a week. From start to finish. Yeah, and then I mean, the entire Bob Marley legend. I mean, legend is just like that thing. My kids know all those words. I
Sure.
mean, and we don't even play like apparently they have a kid-friendly version of that, which
Why would
doesn't say things like ganja or something. I don't even know. I'm like, what the, like this whole thing is kid-friendly. But those are what I'm listening to regularly in my. Nothing new. I need to get on some. Although I
Yeah.
gotta give a plug for a gentleman I met just the other night. He's friends with a bunch of the guys from Boot Camp Click and Smith and Wesson and stuff. His name is dang, I just met him.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Bill.
Bill. In Times Square. I'm gonna have to make a comment on this at some point later and let the world know. But great hip hop guy just sitting in Times Square started talking to me and was just like, you don't know. And I was dressed like this, of course.
Right.
And he's like, you don't look like hip hop. And I said, of a man that goes back as far as you in hip hop, you know how wrong that statement is. And he's like, touche. And he gave me a huge hug.
Exactly.
He said, there is no such thing. And then, of course, we dapped up and he gave me his CD and I gave him $20 because he's an artist and I want to help him. And he actually texted me and he wants me to go to some hip hop tonight. And
are you gonna go?
Orphan, something Orphan. For the Boot Camp Clip. So look up Orphan and look at those guys and you guys can find them.
All right, good.
I'll probably go.
You will?
Go. Yes.
All right. Do you know where it is?
To SOB. SOB. I have no idea.
Oh, SOBs?
Yeah. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds of Brazil. SOBs. It's on the west side. Absolutely.
Okay. There you go.
Great place.
There you go.
Travis Howard, what a conversation here. Thank you so much. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it.
me, Seth. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Take care.
So Travis Howard, a good guy, another guy in town for New York, NCIA, one of those regional events that they're doing. So really enjoyed the conversation with Travis. Obviously a big thinker, clearly, obviously, and certainly deliberating every moment.